What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Wisdom Girl and Wise Woman show. It's your girl, Wisdom Girl, aka Carmel Miller, and this is.
Hey everybody, I'm Wise Woman Leslie Christie.
And today we are on show 49.
Show 49.
And we are doing a Dr. Martin Luther King special.
Yeah.
I have a dream.
Powerful speech.
So early on this week, on Monday, January 16th, I think it was this week, we celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Yep.
Well, his I Have a Dream speech made an impact on the world, and it is still one of the most famous speeches of all time.
Sure is.
For Dr. King, however, it wasn't just a speech, but a truth.
Yeah.
Dr. King never got a chance to see his dream come true. The speech addressed many issues, and 60 years later, we're still asking the same main question without an answer. Are we really free?
Wow. 60 years later, we're still asking that same question. You're so right.
Yeah.
Well, the I Have a Dream speech is a public speech that was delivered by, obviously, American civil rights activist and Baptist minister Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom on August 28th, 1963. It was a speech describing what true freedom really is for African Americans, or Negroes as we were called then, in response to the African American plight or the African American experience, even after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation by President Lincoln on January 1st, 1863. So imagine, here he is 100 years later talking about freedom when, when African Americans were supposed to be freed 100 years before then. Wow. Well,
personally, and this is my personal opinion,
mm-hmm.
I think that segregation started because after President Lincoln had died or was assassinated, basically he probably wanted to lead a world where everybody was free. Everybody was free, and they had as much as they wanted. They had good jobs, respectable jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because he died, they had to elect a new president. And I forgot who was the president during this time.
Well, I don't recall.
It was either Kennedy.
No, it wasn't Kennedy. That's too far down in history. But yeah, they did have to
get a new president
needed to take his place for sure.
Personally, this is my personal opinion. I don't feel like the president got a chance to really say that he didn't want segregation to happen. I feel like the president never got an opinion
because of his assassination.
No, not just that, but like after he died and segregation started to happen, I feel like he never really got I feel like the president never got to a say on what he thought was right.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Well, but for like all I care, the president probably didn't want segregation to happen. But guess what? It happened because he probably didn't get a say. Because like sometimes it's just the government itself that makes the decisions and not the president.
Yeah.
The president is just a pretty face.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? Interesting that you said that, because even though President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, slavery really didn't end until after the Civil War in 1865. And then I just read about a book. I don't recall the name of the book. I'm sorry. I wish I could remember.
Describe it. I might have read it.
It's a book by a white man talking about how slavery even lasted 80 years after that. And basically he's saying pretty much what you were saying, because of segregation, because of Jim Crow, because of the South still having African Americans working, and how, how they were treated, it was still a form of slavery. So
Exactly. I could see that happening, but still, there were slaves even after the Emancipation Proclamation.
yeah, they were.
There
Yeah.
was this one slave ship that actually went to Africa illegally called the
Mm,
Clotilda.
yeah,
And I was
yeah,
watching a documentary, and they actually found it,
yeah, they
but
did.
somebody tried to destroy it
Wow.
and shoved it under the water.
Wow.
And then when they were questioned, they led them to the wrong part of the ocean where they had burned it.
Wow.
So
There's
now when they found it, they went underwater and they found the pieces of the Clotilda.
and that's how they were able to know what ship it was. Right? Yeah. There's so much history that has been hidden, that has been burned, that people just obviously wanted to kind of throw away or not allow us to find, because of the degradation, because of, how evil, if you will, slavery was. I mean, how we were treated was just crazy. It was
And
just,
not only that, but growing up, I was never told the truth
yeah,
about what happened, about what the real story was.
right,
Because the curriculum cut some parts off.
yeah,
But sometimes I feel like there's some teachers that really just like burn inside trying to tell us the truth. But they can't, because of course they don't want to lose their jobs. And most of the people who become teachers are African Americans.
Well,
And we're reading this book in school called Hidden Figures. And back then, African American, it was better for an African American to become a teacher, but it had very low pay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Meanwhile, teachers get like $24,000 a year.
Yeah, which, who can live on that? I mean, it's ridiculous.
It could. I'm saying that it could make sense. I know that they're saying that, we should be more appreciative because we get more money now than we had back then. But that doesn't accept the fact that you're stereotyping us as teachers with low paying jobs.
And you know what? And that happens all across the board, no matter what the job is, where Black people get paid so much lower, so much less than our white counterparts. And don't let it be a Black female, because you definitely get paid the lowest on the totem pole, And I believe that's why God is raising up Black women to start their own businesses, to do things, for themselves, raising up women, but especially Black women, because there's been so much injustice and so many unfair situations that we've had to deal with. But one thing is for sure, in the I Have a Dream speech, these are some of the things that Dr. King was talking about in this speech.
And that's why he was killed, because they didn't want to know the truth.
They didn't want to know the truth. Yeah.
They didn't want the people to rebel against them.
Yeah. And they felt like, oh man, here's this Black man with all of this power, gathering, all these people at his disposal on this, that attended this march. And here he is talking about things that could utterly and instantly change the world. And so, yeah, they had to get rid of him. They absolutely, in their mind, they had to get rid of him. I'm not saying that.
And you know what's crazy? Yeah. After his march on Washington, it's crazy. After his march on Washington, I think it was like a few years later, or a few weeks later, or a few months, he died. That's crazy too.
It was a few years later. Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, I feel like I've been hearing rumors that he was killed by the government.
Well, there are
I mean, I could see that happening, but like personally, I could really see that happening.
well, let me tell you this. There are some documentaries about the FBI. Now, wait, let me put a plug in here. Don't y'all come emailing us and writing us and all that kind of stuff. We're just saying what's already out there, okay? So this is not about our personal, view or anything like that. This is already public information. I just want to put that disclosure out there so that, people don't start, you know, writing us in or whatever. No, so there are documentaries out there talking about the FBI's involvement in Dr. King's assassination. And there's one I think it's on Amazon, FBI and Dr. King. And I haven't looked at it yet. I just looked at like the little, what do you call it? Like the trailers. And so yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch that. But and actually his family, Dr. King's family, did not think that they thought that the FBI was involved, and for a reason, because his phones were tapped. Come on, we all know that his phones were tapped. All kinds of things were happening to him. His family was the target. So yeah, listen, it wasn't. Yeah. They definitely wanted him out, and they said the FBI tapes say that some of the agents were saying that he was a problem and they had to get rid of him. So there you have it. There you have it.
I think we have the answer to that question.
We sure do.
But anyway,
yeah.
Well, I just think it's good how the family is like getting involved with it, especially his granddaughter.
Yeah.
I think she's around my age by now. Most likely around my age.
I think so. They were just at sidebar, but same thing. They were just at the Warriors. The Warriors and oh my gosh, the Kings. Oh my God, why I can't think of this. The basketball team that's in Washington D.C. I don't know why I can't think of the name of the team, but I'm a Warriors fan, obviously. But anyway, that game with the Warriors and them, right? They were just at that game on Dr. King's birthday. And they saluted them, gave them jerseys from both teams. It was really nice. And his granddaughter was there. So but Martin Luther King III, his wife, and their child, which is Dr. King's granddaughter, was there. So it was good seeing them being honored. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was definitely I could see that,
Yeah,
I could definitely see that. But anyway.
All right, so let's dig a little deeper in this conversation. I have a dream.
Yes, because if I remember correctly, we only got 16 or less minutes.
Oh Lord. Okay, let's.
Okay. So, in Dr. King's speech, he said, "But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination." By the way, this is what he actually said. This is a full-blown quote. This is a quote. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land.
Wow. It's amazing to me that all this time, 60 years ago, when he gave this speech, these same words are still true today. That Black people are still not free. We don't have the same rights as our white counterparts. So we're doing a whole lot better. We have a whole lot more opportunities. We can drink from the same fountains, ride on the same planes, go to the same.
I know, and people still find it, and we still dealing with racism today. But not just that. But it's not just that they feel like that. If they feel like that, oh, it doesn't make sense why y'all still complaining. but y'all get as much pay as we do, but we don't.
No, not at all.
We still don't.
No.
There's people making $1 billion a year for just being a teacher.
Well, I don't know if teachers, not like
most teachers. No, like I mean, like
that's a lot of money. So not
like what's the word I'm looking for? Not counselors, like mentors.
Yeah, well,
like mentors like that. But African American mentors only get at least maybe I know it's a whole lot less than that. Assumption $1 million. Well, if somebody's out there being a billionaire or being a mentor, probably not that much money. Not gonna lie, but
it feels like that.
It's definitely. But we know that they're making a whole lot more than we are.
Right.
And they get mad at us for complaining. We have every right to complain, because technically sometimes you just gotta accept the fact that it's still modern day segregation, not the way how the government sees them, but how we as African Americans see it.
Right. And how we experience it, because the truth of the matter is that we can't live, in the same neighborhoods that they live without having to fight our way through. We don't get the same we don't have the same qualification scale, if you will, when we apply for a mortgage or a car loan or a business loan. All these things, there are still rules of segregation that separate us from white America, and that is the truth, and it boggles me, like you were saying, it boggles me how white people, generally speaking, please, our white fans, we're not talking about any individual, generally speaking, this is a general conversation, how they don't understand our plight, right? It just boggles me, how they cannot see, the injustices that are taking place against us as a people. So Dr. King everything he said, listen, the Negroes still not free. He said, when he says 100 years later, he's talking about 100 years from the Emancipation Proclamation that was signed in 1863. And here we are 60 years later, and we still have segregation, discrimination, right? What group is living in poverty more than other groups? It's still the same. We've made strides. We made great strides, but it's still the same. There's still inequality. There's still segregation. There's still discrimination.
That's correct. That's definitely correct, because when we say that, when we basically get upset, they always take it the wrong way. Like we're being ungrateful. Nobody's being ungrateful. Okay, we have houses, whatever. We have great houses with an attic, a basement. We have stuff like that. But like for years, y'all have been making more than us.
Yeah.
And even African Americans was $24K a year. They get that same amount of money a day. So imagine 24K times 365.
That's a lot.
I'm not gonna do the math, but
that's a lot. And you know what else is the truth? That they've had how do I want to say it? They had an earlier start, like they had years and years and years
to prepare for this. And you know what's crazy?
We just now in the 60s, we just now have certain rights. Come on, this is.
I wasn't there, so I'm gonna let her lead this conversation because I wasn't there.
No, but I'm saying certain rights that we have, like the right to vote, the right to drink from the same fountain. These rights, just the abolishment of the Jim Crow laws, just happened in the 60s, which is not a long time ago.
And you know what was crazy? Actually, we're reading this book in school, and I'm telling you, it's a really good book. I will recommend it.
Okay.
Hidden Figures by Margaret Lee Shetterly.
Mm-hmm.
I will recommend it.
Okay.
Because in the book we're talking about Katherine Johnson's traits in ELI class right now.
Okay.
English, by the way, just because they've English class, and there's this part where, if I remember correctly, Dorothy Vaughan was Katherine Johnson's boss, supervisor. Okay. So she told her boss that it's either you give Katherine a raise or you send her back to me, because this is when they were trying to beat the Russians to the moon.
Okay.
And they ended up giving her the raise, but it wasn't because she was a hard worker, because they weren't even going to let her have the position for long. When they get to the moon, they won't need her anymore. Well, they'll just put her right back in West Computing.
Wow, that's true. Yeah. So in a sense, they were like using their intelligence just for their own sake.
Exactly. And even with her, they still didn't get to the moon first.
Right. Wow.
Because I think I remember they did put her back in the West Computing group. But the Russians ended up beating them anyway. But when they came back, they ended up on the moon. They put Louis Armstrong.
Right. They ended up there first. Yeah.
Louis Armstrong.
No, Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong.
Oh yeah, one of them Armstrongs. There's too many Armstrongs.
Louis Armstrong is a saxophonist, a trumpetist. He's a musician.
Oh yeah, I thought that was Bobby Caldwell.
Okay, right.
Anyway, they put Neil Armstrong on the moon, and he was the first American. But the Russians put a lot of stuff up there. They put a dog. They put a mannequin.
Wow. I got to read that book. I saw the movie a billion times, but I never read the book. I have to read the book because I know like books always have more information, more in-depth stuff than the movie. So
and Margaret Lee Shetterly's, she grew up in Newport News, Virginia. And what's crazy? Her dad worked for NASA.
Okay.
She knows what it was going through, because if I remember correctly, when her dad was working there, it was in the time of segregation, which didn't really end until the 1970s.
Yeah.
Where the style was actually good.
Yeah.
But that's me personally.
Yeah. But yeah. So all of these things it's really what Dr. King was talking about in his I Have a Dream speech, But he also said in his speech, and we got 5 minutes. Lord, this got to be a 2-day show. But
maybe next year.
Or maybe during Black History Month. But anyway.
Oh yeah, February. We did this in February.
Yeah.
Oh, we did a Dr. Martin Luther King show last year for February for Black History Month. It's somebody else's turn. We have to do.
All right. Well, let's get this part in before we get this part.
So see what you're trying to say.
All right. So he also said in the speech, and this will be the day, right? After he talks about, he's talking about different type of freedoms, right? And he says, and this will be the day. This will be the day, he repeats it, when all God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. Now, this is the part of the speech that, everybody kind of knows and remembers. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. He's mentioning that song because that was like the song for America, right? And then he said
exactly, and not only that, but I personally, this is my personal opinion, that songwriters have pushed it way too far with these songs that they've been writing about us.
Okay.
Example, don't Eeny Meeny Miny Mo, don't sing that song.
Oh wait, we can't touch that. Well, go ahead, just say that, but
it doesn't.
Like that in another
If
show.
you just look it up, the meaning behind it, it's the disrespect. I don't want to even go into it.
Okay,
But
yeah, don't go into that.
but there's this other song that I also learned from Hidden Figures. Pick a bale of cotton.
Yeah.
Don't sing it because it's referring to slaves. It's referring to slaves.
It's from, yeah. All right.
And,
So listen. So let me finish this part. So the text of the speech goes on to say, and if America. So now he's saying, listen, if we're gonna sing this song, come on, somebody, then this needs to happen. And he says, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And then he says, meaning what you're saying in this song has to become true. And then he says, and so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the heightening alligators of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring. He goes on and on and on about those places where freedom needs to ring. He's talking about those racist places where he himself, in some of these cases, had to deal with racism. And so, it's just amazing how he put this speech together, how it's still is. If he was alive today, Wisdom Girl, if he was alive today, he could say that same speech and it would have the same impact, and it wouldn't
even get old. People would not get tired of hearing it.
No, because
it would just be something. It's a truth, and personally, my opinion. All right, I'm not gonna cry.
Don't cry.
Basically, if you don't know, most of notice the first three he says. Okay. So let freedom ring from the prestigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York, and let freedom ring from the heightening alligators of Pennsylvania. Notice those three places were the places where slaves could go after they were free.
You know what? That's true.
On top of that, he says that doesn't make sense how people still run there, but they're still facing the same thing.
Which is why what you said when we was prepping for the show, when you said something that was so powerful. You said segregation ended, but not racism, and that there's a difference. So we still got a long way to go because we're really still not free. We're free in one sense, but we're still locked up in a lot of other senses, locked up, by control and by laws and different things like that. However, the beauty of today is that we have more at our disposal. And I'm really talking about since the pandemic, where it's more, there's more exposure about the injustices toward us as a people. And we're able to, we understand more as Americans, we understand more as African Americans, And so even though we got to work just as hard, we still have opportunities, and we need to take hold of these opportunities and, and do what we are able to do. Build those jobs, hire Black people, build banks. What kind of things we have to do for us? Yeah.
But
so
ran out of time.
Yeah, we ran out of time. So what we got going on next week before we close? What's special about next week, Wisdom Girl?
It's our 50th show.
It's our 50th show.
What's so weird? We celebrated our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
And then our 50th show comes.
Comes after. Yeah. It is. Well, because we didn't count there was like 2 or 3 weeks, I think, that we actually did not air at all. So that's why we now get into the show. But anyway. All right.
Well, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, friend. I don't know how this thing works, how Facebook works, but follow, and don't forget to wise up,
live, and
and
prosper.
prosper.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you next week.
Bye bye.